Yes, thank you so much for the introduction. Today, hardly any top manager can avoid the topic of new work, which implies meaningful work and development of potentials for each employee. Recently, Gründerszene has published a full report about how to establish new work at a company, and you can acquire it on the premium section of our website. So what is it that really motivates employees in a world in desperate need of experts? That's our topic today. Let's start with Sarah. Your company claims to work in an agile way. What do you mean by this?
Well, I guess everybody probably by now is familiar with the term agility and what it means. It's a method that originates basically from IT to more or less organize the way they work in developing projects. When we say we work agilely, I think is the word, we adapt that to our own needs. We don't, for example, use Scrum, the method of Scrum. We work with Kanban because that kind of caters more to our needs. And what we do as a recruitment company or a consulting company is we use the methods of agility, for example, like things like retrospectives, that give us a frame to talk to each other, to organize ourselves, and to organize the daily business, to define roles, to define responsibilities, to talk about money. So basically, agility and the methods that come with it, we pick from them and we use them to self-organize our team and our daily work environment.
In your opinion, how many hierarchies are necessary for employees in order for them to work well?
I feel like I should give a straight answer, but I don't have one because I don't think, well, that's one of the biggest learnings and also the essence of my company is that there is no one golden way. So it always depends on the companies, the members of the company, background, age, personality, the structure of the product. There's so many components that define a company that I can't say, you know, there have to be 2 levels of hierarchy and then it's great. I think for us, from my experience, there still has to be a difference between us as the owners and CEOs/COOs to carry some responsibility as long as our team is not entirely ready to work self-determined. But we're always in the process of developing and evolving. So until maybe there will be a point in 2 weeks where, you know, they'll go berserk and be like, give us all the responsibility and then we'll get rid of the hierarchies. I think as long as they're still needed and wanted, because that's what we do, we play delegation poker, we ask the team and, you know, how much responsibility do you actually want to have, for example, when it comes to budget, when it comes to staff. And as long as they give us more responsibility than they will take on, then there is hierarchy. But I don't think it's needed if people are ready to work democratically and carry their own responsibility and wait. But that always depends on each company and each environment and each person.
Cordelia, your company is said to be like a German pioneer of new work. You even got rid of all hierarchies. So how is everyday life without bosses?
That's great.
I guess so.
Well, not always. So sometimes it's really tricky because it takes a lot of time and effort and also work to come to decisions when there's no one who really is the boss to take a decision. But our idea is to get rid of all the hierarchies to make sure that there's not always like one single goal which has to be reached. Like when there's always like a goal of making profit, then you will always have like the sustainability. We call it fair sustainability. It's a department. We are 20 people here in Berlin. We're a startup selling vegan condoms, also now fair sustainable period products since March. And we are 20 people, and 4 of us are in the fair sustainability department. And they would never like be able to spread their ideas and bring them into the final concept. If there was always someone to say, well, if I had to choose between if it's very profitable or very sustainable, we would always go for profitable. So there's always a fight. We call it fight and hack. So we always have to discuss things long time. So we really have to talk about efficiency. I think there's something we can learn there. But I think everybody is really motivated because we know that every voice counts the same. Of course, there are also hidden hierarchies. I couldn't tell that the founders have a different voice than, everybody else because they founded the company. But still, there's a lot of democracy going on, and every decision is being taken by all of us. And that is very motivating because you know that if you have a point and if you have a problem with something and you have something to say, you can always say it and it will be noted and it will be reflected in the final decision.
Can you give a few examples about how staff is organizing themselves, like concrete examples?
Well, we try to actually use methods like Scrum, for example, but it's not for us. We have project teams, so when we came up with the period products, we decided to split the company a little bit like condoms and team period, although it's like very fluid, so you can take part in any project you like, but we have like 2 teams, you can say. And then we have visual fixes where we meet once a week, where we tell each other, we have a big board, and we tell each other what are the next steps, what has to be done, what we need from each other, and we do a lot of communication, obviously, to make sure that all the projects develop themselves. But we are not the most efficient company in the world, I would say, but we're very happy with that and profitable, and it's running very well.
And your salaries at EINHORN are communicated openly, so everybody knows what everybody's earning, in fact. That sounds difficult, actually.
Yeah, that was really, I was working for a corporate before, for 7 years, and salaries were the biggest taboo. And when I got to EINHORN, they had to discuss my salary, my wish, with everyone, and I knew coming to the company that everybody knew what I was raising or what I was asking for, and that was a big new situation to know that everybody knows what everybody's earning. But now it's a lot about talking about why you have the needs and what makes you ask for this salary, and we discussed this. We just had a meeting 2 weeks ago where we rediscussed all the salaries, where everybody went to the board and wrote down their name and said, so this is my current salary and this is what I would like to earn, and we discussed it, and it went really well, but that's because we put a lot of work, and I think that's also very tightly related to new work, because it also means inner work, like non-violent communication, talking about the needs, and we figured this out already quite well. But still, this was a very one of the more tenseful meetings. It's tough, but it's an experiment. We try out things that in the old economy, as you would say, are like a no-no, that everybody knows everybody's salaries. That's sounds completely crazy, but it helps also to understand everybody else a little bit better.
So one of the founders of EINHORN, Philip, once said that there has been like a lot of fighting about salaries, and still is. So how do you cope with that, actually?
Well, the fighting, I think when he said that was like 2 years ago. That was the first time that salaries, so EINHORN was founded 4 years ago, and then everybody had a very small salary, and then after 2 years it became profitable, and it had to be, discussed in a new way. And of course I wouldn't say it's fighting, it's a lot of discussions, because there are such different points coming together. So last week, one of my colleagues said, I have a question. Why do we always need to earn more? And I was sitting there like, what? Are you kidding me? I mean, of course, we develop and then we get richer in our experiences. But he said, but why why does it need to be? Or sometimes there was some time someone raised the question of why do we need to grow? And sometimes these situations are tenseful, because also me coming from a background where you always want to grow, obviously, but then also with people that really want to save the planet, and that they can't help themselves but looking to reduce the plastic, and they don't care if it's profitable and we make a lot of money, but they only want to save the world, right? So it's a lot of perspectives coming together, and this broadens all our horizons and makes us like EINHORN. EINHORN is like the sum of everybody in there, and we are very different. And that's a lot of fighting, but I would rather say it's talking and understanding, but also shaking the head.
Okay. Falko, your company offers a platform for freelancers, so could you please specify in which areas freelancers are currently wanted most?
I mean, it depends on the market. So we are an international company. We are from Israel. We are very big in the US, and it definitely depends on the market. In Germany, it's a bit more tech-heavy, I would say. So kind of you have this discussion everywhere in the media and throughout the companies that developers are missing. A lot of other companies and headhunters are looking particularly for developers and web designers and everything that goes on in the building side of tech products. We definitely see this. There's a high demand for this on our platform. Very, like, historically, we come from a, I guess, more design background, so everything around design, logo design, stationery, but also, yeah, I mean, web design anyways is in high demand, but tech is definitely on the rise right now.
And how can you ensure that their work is meeting requirements of the companies?
I mean, we have two mechanisms for that, actually. So when we started out, we were really under the premise that we said, like, everyone should participate in the global job market. So we made labor global, if you wish. So in the beginning, we had a lot of people from Southeast Asia that could make a very decent living while offering their freelance services. And kind of we let the marketplace decide who was a great fit for companies and for customers. I mean, in the end, we are a marketplace platform. We started out with very low touch, and we said the marketplace will decide, which it did. So we have a ranking system, we have a rating system, we have something that we call Fiverr Quality Score, that is basically an algorithm that is calculating or has taken several dimensions and factors into account, which is like the rating on the one hand, but also the reply rate. Is there a cancellation? So is the product delivered on time? These kind of things, and in the end, you get a rating, and this kind of constitutes the marketplace or the equilibrium in supply and demand. Something that we recently added, and this is especially interesting for projects that go more into a higher quality area, if you wish, is Fiverr Pro. Where we really do background checks. So I guess our marketing slogan is, it's harder than to join Harvard, it's harder to get into Fiverr Pro, which is actually weirdly true, because you need to apply. We have a team that makes background checks, that jumps on calls with the people and really needs to make sure that these people have a professional background in the field that they're applying for example, programming. To be honest, we're taking this perhaps too serious, because all the time, like, we started in September in the market, and I always try to push people in. So when I meet a developer on a conference like this, I'm like, I push you into Fiverr Pro, no problem. I know all the people in the department. They always get back to me with questions like, are you sure he's a professional developer? Have you checked his background? Like, have you talked to him? And I'm pretty proud on how serious we take this and how little nepotism or something like this we have in the process.
Doreen, since you founded LEMONCAT, you have a motto. You only want to hire people who know what they are doing. Means seniors instead of juniors. Why is that?
Well, it's not necessarily seniors instead of juniors, but well, you all know in the startup scene, at least a couple of years ago, there were companies who only worked with interns, who only had probably 2 full-time employees, and then the rest were a little army of interns. And I think this is something we decided that we don't want to work like that. So, of course, we also have, I think, 1 or 2 interns in the company, but I always want to make sure that on every junior there is a very experienced professional who can train that junior. And I think that's the important thing, because if you start a new company and you realize how fast things can move because you work with the right people on the right places, that is actually pretty exciting, and that's the difference between having someone who never, let's say you put someone on HR who never negotiated a contract yet, who know nothing about labor law in Germany and so on, that can only cause trouble. And I think it's really to avoid trouble and to be faster.
So how do you find the right talents?
It's hard these days. I think it, especially since Berlin develops and the startup scene is on the rise here in the city, it's definitely becoming harder and harder. But for us, the bigger question is not how to find the right talent, because I feel that if you're really behind that, if you have a great company and a great vision, great product, then you can definitely attract great talent. But I think it's more difficult to keep them. Because for us, as the company, it's not the goal to bring someone on board and then keep losing them, and after half a year you have turnover, and a year, like, you want to have a core of people in your team which stay for years. And I think that is the big challenge in the startup environment.
So how do you keep them?
Took us a while. I mean, we are also not perfect. Of course, we have a turnover as well. But what we realized, also with throughout many discussions I had with friends and so on, and then, of course, I'm in the startup scene now for more than 15 years. So, of course, I also saw other times. And I also realized that there's a whole new workforce on the rise, probably. That we realized that if we want to motivate the people to stay longer with us and really stay for years, we have to come up with a program which is giving them more and more incentives for more time they spend with us. So at some point we realized, yes, it is probably not the problem to bring people on board, but to keep them. Okay, so what are their requirements? What do they want us to do? And how can we make that more attractive at LEMONCAT? So we started kicking off a perk program, which actually gives them incentives after a year, after 2 years, and after 5 years. I mean, the company is not 5 years yet, so that's the big goal for all of us to achieve. But it starts with extra vacation days to make this whole work-life balance attractive, or that we are very family-friendly, also given by the fact that I also have a little kid at home. That we give, after a year, the opportunity to do home office if you need to.
But after a year?
After a year, yeah.
Okay.
Because I think it has to do with trust as well, to give someone the opportunity to work from home and be totally self-organized. And I think for both parties, it is important to get to know each other. And I keep thinking, like, if someone really stays with us for over a year, then we can definitely give more trust and more freedom to the people as well, and then they can also work from home. Or we had one of my first employee, actually, she's still with us, Maria, and she decided she wanted to work a month from Thailand, for example, and we gave her that opportunity. So we try to be way more flexible to really give everyone the opportunity to kind of interpret this new work, how they want to see it.
Okay. Sarah, what kinds of employees are demanded right now by companies?
What kind of what?
What kind of employees are demanded right now by companies? What kind of talents are looked for?
Do you mean specialized in what?
Yeah, for example.
Well, obviously a lot of digital talent, let me put it this way. Tech specifically, with long experience. I mean, we are, after all, a consulting recruitment company, so that means we get paid for looking for professional staff, which I just told Falko before, that we get, we start at a senior level usually looking for people. So when we are looking for seniors, usually we are looking for experienced developers, data scientists, everything in that regard. Now more and more in the agile scene, meaning product people, agile coaches, because I think that's the new trend coming up, So it's very broad, because again, I'm sorry that I have no standard answer. It depends on the company. You know, we usually look for unicorns recently. That's the thing we do, you know, because there's the first real legal tech startup. So, you know, we look for somebody that has a legal background and a profound legal background, but also understands development. Find somebody like that. You know, that would be representative of what we're looking for, because we usually staff the primary senior team for our clients, or we hire, you know, additionals, but usually on a senior level. And in that regard, we are looking for quite specialized, highly skilled professionals on the one hand. But since we are the way we are and we work the way we work, we also look for specific personalities, which doesn't mean I can't give you a specific profile. We are looking for the right fit, which is very specific, again, to the company, you know, that we're working with, the role that is required, the position, the team environment.
And where do you find your own employees who are able to work like agile and creative and all the stuff you require?
They find us, mostly.
Okay.
We are kind of, we are these hippies, you know, that still think openly, and I think that's originally what led us to found a company and set it up like that from the very first hour. So what makes Rebel Recruiting special is we are very humanistic. We put the human aspect before, or the humans before profit most of the time. You know, saying that we are no charity. We need to make money and profit still, but you know, we prioritize in that way, and we prioritize in every way, like with our employees, with ourselves, with our team, but also with the companies and also with the candidates, you could say. So we find our people actually the way that people just speak to us, or we connect with people on a level that, you know, intuition says you're a good person, a cool person, and we're actually contemplating right now to hire, in Germany you would say Quereinsteiger, you know, because what you can't fake is passion for people. That's the most important thing for us. You know, you can always do good consulting job or good recruiting job. It's a mostly standardized process. But what you can't fake, what you can't teach somebody is how to be passionate about humans and how to ask questions that are interesting and diverse, because, you know, you need to be empathetic. So we find these people kind of when they find us, and then it's a long dating process. It's basically like with a good relationship, I always say. Staffing is like building a good relationship, and it takes time to be sure, and then it's still not set that it's the right match, especially in an ever-changing company.
Falko, we live in a gig economy with temporary work contracts, and it can be really tough for people to switch jobs often and quickly. Which advice would you give to them so that they can better deal with the situation, like financially and emotionally?
I'm no financial advisor, so I won't go too deep into that. So I think saving makes sense. I think actually ETFs make sense. I think this is perhaps a subject for another day. I think uncertainty is something that is pretty much a new factor or new reality for the labor market that we have these days. And to me, that is amazing, I have to say. So like, some would say like the risks are higher, uncertainty is higher, but I would say freedom is higher as it ever has been in the labor market. So I always tell the story of my father that worked 44.25 years at Sparkasse. Oh, he always tells me like, I worked 44.5 years in my Sparkasse, you know. I was in that one branch, and you have to, you know, change jobs every fucking 6 months. And I say, like, look, this is the new reality, and what is so bad about it? Because I can have amazing experiences at one company. I can switch a job to another one. I can. We discussed this earlier, and I mean that's the reality of the generation we are. I can perhaps drop out of being an employee and go to becoming a freelancer for a while because I said like, fuck that, my boss was an asshole, I'm a bit depressed, I go to Thailand and I just gonna do freelancing for a year. And then I go back to Berlin, let's see what is happening, because with my skill set that I acquired as an employee and as a freelancer and with my intercultural background in Thailand or whatever, like I have a skill set of a Quereinsteiger or of a multifaceted person that is very interesting for a lot of employers out there. So I would rather say like, fuck German Angst, don't be afraid of uncertainty and embrace freedom, because that's the world we live in, and it has, in my opinion, it has way more advantages than it has disadvantages.
And I also feel that it was a demand from the young generation that they wanted freedom. It was not that companies came and said, look, now we're only hiring freelancers. It's really, this is the reality of people I see when they apply. They want this freedom. They want to have sabbaticals very early. They want to, like, they really see this as I have a pause from in between jobs. For example, I go and travel. So it's not necessarily, I think sometimes it's a little bit also what I hear in the news or in the media, finger pointing towards those gig economies or Uber, Deliveroo, you name it. But in fact, it's what people who work there, they also, maybe not everyone, right? But many people, they like that they can log into the app, get a job, earn some money, and then they log out again, and then that was their day job, you know? So that's, I think, a demand which really came from that young generation of employees as well.
Doreen, when you founded LEMONCAT, you just had given birth to a baby. So how did you manage to arrange time for business and family?
It's still a challenge, I would say.
Yeah, I guess so.
But she was also like, she was 8 months old, so not like super tiny. And yes, it was a challenge. I think that we had to, as a family, we had to figure it out, how to organize everything best. And the first months were probably pretty tough, because there is always this, okay, I want to be home and I want to spend time with my kid, but at the same time, I don't want to go because my whole team is sitting there, and what kind of role model am I if I go home now? So I think those kind of thoughts I definitely had in the first year maybe, but I think now we've totally settled in. My team knows when I'm in the office late and when I have to go a little bit earlier. And I think the coolest thing is really that it gave other women in the company the freedom that they actually got pregnant, and I never had that in any of my startups before I was a mom, that employees got pregnant. I cannot I cannot even remember that at Delivery Hero, for example, where we were 600 people at some point, that I had a pregnant, I did not see anyone being pregnant. I don't know why, maybe but seriously, there was no one. And now I have four. Okay. Four ladies, you know, after another throughout, and we are 40 people, you know, it's like it's a pretty visible percentage, and it's great. They're working until the end, like they really feel comfortable in that environment, and hopefully most of them will come back after their maternity leave. So I think that's pretty cool. That's for me also a new development, like to really make sure that family and business is combinable.
Like I've read that you're working full-time and you're supported at home by your husband and a nanny. So in your opinion, is leadership in part-time even possible?
No, not in a startup. No.
So
I mean, not if you have, if you really want, it depends. If you maybe have a very small hand-picked agency, I don't know, like 10, 20 people or something like that, maybe. But if we raised money from investors, I mean, if I would tell them, look, I give just 20 hours attention to the investment you gave us, I think they wouldn't like it so much. And I think we could also not achieve in a startup. It is a very challenging environment, and you really need to survive. The first years are all about survival, and you have competitors, and you must grow and all that kind of stuff. So I think part-time, I could not do the job.
So in this case, what kind of structures would you propose to single moms who cannot afford a nanny, but who still want to work in a leadership position?
It's a very tough question. I mean, in the end, of course, it is all about how you structure your private life. Probably if you have a good supporting network, maybe you have grandparents or good friends, or you have other families, and you kind of share responsibilities. And you, but I think I could not survive if I would not have my supporting network, including my parents and my babysitter and so on. Being in a leadership position, of course, also adds a certain pressure on top of it, because you have to attend meetings, you have to be there. But I think what you can structure definitely is when women always have this big myth of over hours and 80-hour work week and so on. I think that is not necessary, because I also remember back then at Delivery Hero, our CEO Fabian, who had 3 little kids, and he had this rule that he would go home at 6, no matter what. We were in the management meeting having heated discussions, and he said, okay, it's 6, guys, I'm leaving. So you can totally manage that, but I think it's not easy to manage it. I think if you think, yeah, that's all easy peasy, and I go to work, I have my leadership role, I go home and satisfy my family and everything. So it's definitely a challenge to make sure that everyone, and like the company and the family, gets the needed attention.
So what do you think about job sharing?
I think I'm not a big fan of that, but I also have to say I don't have any experience with it yet. So I never had anyone doing this job sharing thing in my company, or I was never part of such an experiment. I just think as an employer, I would not like it so much to sit in one meeting with one person, and then the next week that one person who I discussed that and this and that with is not there, but the other person is there. So I think you should be super well organized and structured to do such a thing. But I definitely worked with part-time in the past. So then I would rather say, is it possible that we have a great marketing manager and she only wants to work 20 hours or 30 hours? Okay, let's try to make that happen. Maybe with a senior female leader and an intern, and really train the intern, work together. But this half-half, I don't know. Like, I think it's complicated because it's still 2 different people, and how do you want to make sure that those 2 different people do support the same decisions? They are not twins, right? So like they have different opinions. So you discuss one topic with that one person, and then the other person has a totally different view on this thing, and then you start all over again. So that would make it very complicated for me. That's why I think I'm not a big fan of that.
We actually do that. We actually. Well, I'm a mom of a little kid too, so we have a completely different approach to the company. We kind of do it entirely different, which is interesting to hear your perspective on that, because we put that first, and we always believe that, your private circumstances come first because they've been there before usually, or, so you don't have to weigh them out. And so what we do, and it's like you say, it's a lot of discussion, because I work part-time. Well, I do not work full-time, but there are weeks where I work full-time. But I share my job with my partner, my business partner, Felix. So we kind of share the job, but then we also have different responsibilities. But what we do is, and a few of our employees are parents as well, is we just talk about it, and we always sit together and we use the frames of, actually speaking about the challenges that are up, and actually a lot of private stuff goes into that, not in an extended version, but it's like, okay, we have, for example, my day mom, she was sick, like severely sick for months. So I had nobody to take care of my 1-year-old, and as a mom, you just don't leave him at home. So we kind of managed with a network, but I also brought him to work, and everybody kind of took care of everything, and we still defined the priorities. So we prioritize differently in a situation of crisis, and that's, I think, the climate that you need to get to, at least for us. That's the way to do it, and say, okay, a project that is priority C is not on the table for the next 4 weeks, so just leave that out. We have, we need to kind of be more goal-oriented and be way more efficient within, for example, 4 or 5 hours in a day, and we hold ourselves accountable to that. So it's a very different approach than you have. But it means a lot of giving up of control as a leader. I have to trust my team way more. And that also means that I can potentially be disappointed, and there will be fuck-ups, It's a lot of trial and error, a lot of learning, and a lot of just regrouping and reprioritizing. But once you get to a point where it works, it works.
Okay, thank you. Cordelia, here's another rule at your company, which is quite interesting. actually, if a person doesn't want to work on a certain day, he or she doesn't have to. So how often do people actually take advantage of that?
Well, the idea behind it is when you go to work and you really don't want to go to work, you're not your best self and nobody wants to have you around. So you just don't do nice work and you'll not be fun to be with. So that's the idea. Sometimes this happens, I couldn't say how often exactly it happens. It happened to me, I think, 2 weeks ago when I had a really fun Monday evening that turned out a lot more fun than I thought it would. And on Tuesday morning, I was writing to the team, sorry, I think I will be there after lunch. And that's no problem at all because we're really very free. And I think that's a lot, new work is a lot about having, it shouldn't be confused with new office. I think that's something a lot of companies do. It's not having, also it's nice to have an open space, but that's not new work. And new work means being free. We are very pleased to be free with no investors at all, being profitable with no investors, so we don't have anyone to tell us what we should do, so there are no meetings to put something together and present it to someone. And there's a lot of flexibility also in the schedules. I think I have 2 dual fixes every week that I would really like to attend because it makes sense to attend, but apart from that, nobody has to attend any meeting. So our schedules are very, very free, and I can decide, or everybody can decide what they want to do the whole day. So it's not a big thing if you just, like every now and then, don't come to work because you don't feel you have to come. Then you are doing something on the weekend maybe, or you're not evening it out at all. It will all be, if I think, and this is one of the ideas of EINHORN, which is also a lot about unfucking the economy, which means having a company that doesn't harm the planet or maybe even helps the planet gaining back some of their preciousness, and having a profitable business on the same side. So bringing these both together is unfuck the economy, and also unfuck work means not forcing anyone to do anything, and then you're completely free. And when you're free, you can think differently and you will do what you're most passionate about. I really loved what you said about recruiting as a kind of relationship, like dating and getting to know each other, and not being about what you can do, because actually nobody at EINHORN was searching for a head of menstruation. So we were getting to know each other, and we realized that it could be a good fit of personalities and of course of values. And then we were looking at what we can do together and what I could bring to the party. But it's a lot about bringing personalities together and evolving together.
So before you came to EINHORN, you worked at a global company, Beiersdorf in Hamburg. So what kind of new work structures have you experienced there, like in comparison to the structures at EINHORN?
So, I mean, that was 2 years ago. A lot of things can change in 2 years, and also new work became really big in that time. So I'm not really sure if that, I think that's not the same as it was back 2 years ago. But I remember when I said to my boss that I would like to do a home office day, because also back then I realized that sometimes I can be best when I'm not in this office. And he said, oh, that's...
Not so good.
No. You do it, but don't tell everyone. Oh, wow. And I was thinking, this is the exact opposite of what we're doing now. Of course, also there we had open space, and we had like colorful furniture, and we had tries to, we were trying to, make it everything more casual, but it just was not really possible, because from the top, it was completely it was a different mindset. And that's what I meant with we shouldn't confuse new work with new office, because new work also needs inner work. It also means giving up a lot of privileges. I mean, when I'm looking at my former bosses, like 5 hierarchies up, I'm not sure if they would be very excited to give up their privileges to finally decide on things. So that's why it really also takes a lot of time to bring new work into big corporates, because it means that you're really challenging also ideas that have been in our economy for decades or even longer.
But is that actually possible? I mean, it sounds like utopia, what you're saying, and it sounds amazing how you work at EINHORN. But you're also quite small companies. So do you really believe that it would work like that as well if you're a couple of hundred employees in a company? Would it actually work at Beiersdorf? Or is that really something for small companies?
That's a good question. I think it has to work, because in 2020, half of the workforce will be Generation Y. And this generation, there is a lot of myths about it, but I'm really sure, because I belong myself to it, that for the Generation Y, it's much more important to have impact, to have like work self-determinated, and not to have like this how long was it, 35-year-old, 45?
44.5.
Okay, like this long contract. Like generations before, it was the idea to work at a company for a very long time, but now we want to have impact in the world.
But we are not the only generation who wants to have impact. I think
true, but I think we want more flexibility. It becomes more important to have have your personal life coming first. We see that from the generation that are also like applying at EINHORN and asking for a job. I think companies who don't cater to that will get left behind if they like stay in this concept. But I agree, it can be very tricky. So we are also thinking about how can we scale our business without losing the values. And also now we are coming into an idea of a self-owned company. So that's our first step. So our founders will give away their rights and shares, and the company will be owned by itself. And we are now figuring out a model where we can grow without hierarchies, which will be a challenge, of course. But we wouldn't be EINHORN if we wouldn't try it out. We'll tell you in 2 years, I guess.
Well, thank you. Do we have any questions in the audience? Just 1 second.
Yeah, hi. So really interesting to see all these disruptive ideas. But going back to I find it fascinating, challenging these whole ideas in the economy. And when you said that sometimes if you don't want to come to work, you don't go, I'm thinking whenever you have, let's say you have a dog or you have a plant or a kid, sometimes you don't want to give food, wake up in the morning, but you have to do it. It's kind of part of the responsibility. Somebody needs you. Somebody depends on you. And you don't want to do it. And you still do it. It's kind of part of being an adult, And sometimes the company needs you. And you don't want to go, but you still have to. So how, I feel like it's still going to be there, even if, how do you manage that? Like, the company depends on you. You are supposed to be here. You're an adult. You don't want to go, but you're a professional,
But I think it shows when we're really looking at how often does it happen. It doesn't really happen a lot of times that somebody's not coming to work and saying, I don't want to come. But I think when you're taking away all what you have to do and somebody is still coming, that's a commitment. So everybody knows they don't need to come, and we also can take as much holidays or vacation as we want, but still people are not taking a lot. They are taking vacations because also our founders are taking a lot of vacations. But I think you see when somebody is really dedicated and coming to work and bringing their everything and staying, sometimes also we try not to, but sometimes also until late. We just launched 8 new products at DM, which is a big retailer, which was a huge thing for us only 20 people. And there you had like 3 months of people coming to work, showing up, working. Like our design team worked for 3 months full, I would say. They almost lived in the office. And this is like the real dedication when you want to make a really good job and you want to give everything, because it's more like a family than a company, but you know you don't have to, but you feel you're really committed. So I wouldn't say commitment is any issue at EINHORN.
And then drawing from experience on that end, that is also when it comes to your question before. You have two ways of existing in the world. Either you're intrinsically motivated or you're extrinsically motivated. And in the past, even centuries, ever since working for money has established, we've been conditioned to be extrinsically motivated. It's the way that we view humans that is not very humanistic, because we think, basically, let me be drastic, you think, you have to give incentives and make people more productive in the monetary way. But what EINHORN is doing, and I think what we're trying to do as well, is you try to work with intrinsic motivation and cater to that need. You don't create an environment where anything has to be done anymore, except for what the company needs to do to be profitable. But the company to be, everybody kind of wants the company to be profitable because it gives you money to survive and to sustain yourself, and if it runs well, there's more of it and there's more freedom, so you gain as well. And so it means completely I think the word unfucking is quite well, because it kind of means to turn the things inside out and to take that great risk. And at the end of the day, if you only hire the right people with the right attitude and the right intrinsic motivation, then you don't need this frame. You just don't need it anymore, because people create the environment and they create the life they live in. They don't feel like they have to do anything anymore, but they're part of something, and then they get to choose. And choice and responsibility is a great power. That's,
So, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are out of time. So if you have any more questions, just go ahead, talk to our experts. They will be still here, hopefully, like for a while at least. Thank you so much.